Boop, 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 Oh, internet. What's up, everybody? It's Monday out here on the internet. Yeah. It's internet time. You're here. I'm here. Let's all be here. Shout out to Tom Patterson, first to the chat today. Alyssa Bentley, Janice Lumberg, Daniel Velez, Big D Smoke, James Shepard, Michael Sarr, Frank Dominguez, Fish Room Fever, Groveside Aquarium, Steve Beartitch. I almost got them all right. Miradul Singh, Janice Lundberg, and I think that's everybody. What's up? What's up to all the people in the chat? Alyssa says, yo. Janice says, yo. Big D says, yo. James Shepard says, hello. Good to see y'all. Great to be here on a Monday. I am feeling the burn, bros. I'm feeling the burn, you guys. It's hot. It's so hot. If anybody remembers James Brown from Saturday Night Live, depicted by Eddie Murphy. It's too hot in the hot tub. Ah! Maybe to bring a little glimmer to your eye and make you feel a little bit of happiness in your soul to think about Eddie Murphy playing James Brown on Saturday Night Live 40 years ago, right? It all makes sense. It all makes perfect sense when you think about it that way. As a matter of fact, it makes no sense. That's what I'm thinking about. But it is super hot out yesterday. Crazy, crazy hot. 100 degrees here in the lovely south end of the Puget Sound. Out here as referred to by Steve Beartitch. Greetings from the City of Destiny. That is right. We are down here in the City of Destiny, otherwise known as Tacoma, Washington, in the United States. City of Destiny. Why? Why would they call it the City of Destiny? I believe it has everything to do with the railroads landing here many, many years ago. Many, many, many years ago, the intergalactic. I was going to say intercontinental, but that just sounds too accurate. Let's say intergalactic train station. City of Destiny, Tacoma. Where did that come from? Let's see here. Oops, this window on my Googling here is all disproportioned. I must control resize. Ooh, we got to resize like that. Ooh, more resizing. Oh, I can't read it now. It's too small. All right, let's go like this, and we'll push the slider over this way. Tacoma is a city in Washington State on the banks of Puget Sound, south of Seattle. That is right. We are south of Seattle. We're mucho grande south of Seattle. Our minimum wage here is $12.35 United States dineros per hour. I did not realize it was $12.35 an hour down here. Interesting. City of Destiny, where did that come from? Let's find out. Let's take a look here. One eccentric man named Tacoma, the City of Destiny. Here we go. Tacoma has been known as the City of Destiny for more than 140 years, my guy. 140 years. 140. 140 or something? I don't know how to say 140 in Spanish. 140 years. While the city's slogan has had a unique longevity, when was the last time you heard Seattle referred to as the Jet City? The slogan's originator is even more extraordinary. George Francis Train is often credited with the name, with naming Tacoma the City of Destiny. At the very least, he popularized the slogan, using it over and over in his bombastic, syndicated newspaper column called, inexplicably, Trains Vander Billion Psychos. Oh my God, I have to. Let me copy this, and I shall post it into the chat with a Control V action. This is literally what the title of his bombastic syndicated newspaper column was titled as. While he was genuine national celebrity of his day, most accounts also describe him as being more than a little wacky. He was fabulously wealthy from a family of shipbuilders, but fancied himself a poet and philosopher. Train once spent an entire year speaking only to children because he decided adults had nothing to say. Well, that's weird. Plus, he promoted all sorts of strange fads, including a diet of only fruit and chocolate. It sounds like a sane person to me. Of course, 100%. Totally sounds normal. For whatever reason, after visiting in Tacoma in 1869, Train embraced the town with all of his heart and vowed to do everything he could to help it become the Manhattan of the West. At the same time, Northern Pacific was deciding where to locate the terminus for its transcontinental rail line. The stakes were huge. Not only did it mean people and jobs, but with a railroad came the telegraph. That would mean newspapers could get updates from all around the world and banks could wire money. Tacoma was chosen for the rail line, and Train, who was also known to exaggerate, took credit. Therefore, Train would claim that he made Tacoma the city of destiny. Having lost out to Tacoma, Seattle sulked. Seattle city leaders, including Arthur Denny, which, by the way, I know a lot about Arthur Denny. He was not a very nice guy. He was not a good man. Tried to convince Northern Pacific to change its mind, and it wouldn't. A rivalry and mutual dislike between the two cities was born, and George Francis Train did everything he could to encourage it. But Seattle had the last laugh. It became the big, prosperous city known around the world, not Tacoma. KPLU reporter Paula Whistle shares the bizarre history of the City of Destiny and talks to sound effect Gabriel Spitzer about why it didn't live up to its promise. That gets pretty anecdotal there at the end of a certain opinion. Tacoma is what would be considered a fairly sizable city. Let me look this back up. Tacoma population. Let's check out our population here real quick. Tacoma city population is what city? Spokane. Tacoma? Spokane. Okay, so Tacoma itself wouldn't really be considered a giant city. Within the city limits is supposedly 216,000 people. The surrounding area is about 1 million. So, it's definitely not the biggest city. It's definitely not out of control or anything like that, but it is definitely enough people to have all of the stuff. All of the stuff that you would normally find in a big city. So it's pretty much all you really need. There's no giant Sears Tower or anything goofy like that. Either way, I don't know how I got off onto the sidetrack there, but what a weird sidebar. Sorry about that. Let's get back to what I normally talk about on this channel, fish tankery stuff. I've got some fish tank stuff going on in my neck of the woods. I don't know about you guys. I haven't seen any fish questions in the chat yet, or plant questions or aquarium questions, so we'll just move on to talk about what I got going on. It's been super hot. I had to take a few little... a few very minor considerations because of the extreme temperature that is here. I'm not somebody that claims 100 degrees is like extreme or anything, but with the sun beating down, it being 100 degrees ambient temperature, it can cause issues, especially with tropical plants, tropical fish, tropical region shrimp. The equator doesn't really ever get up to 100 degrees. Water temps don't normally ever violently swing out of control in a lot of areas, although they do seasonally change in a lot of areas. They definitely do change in the region of the equator, that is for sure, but not day by day, which is what would typically happen in an area like mine when it goes up to 100 degrees. It doesn't, around these parts, it doesn't casually slowly creep its way up to 100. It's like, I think the day before it was 78 out, and then the next day it was 100. So it just gives you an idea where it could be a situation. I did have to make some minor mitigation changes. I had to change my dehumidifier was being too aggressive, so I just kind of set the humidity percentage a little bit higher. I moved it from my typical 50% up to 60% so that it basically wasn't running. And then I turned on the exhaust fan to my fish room, and that was basically it. Today I'm going to be doing more water changes. So today I'm doing water changes. I don't preferably do them ahead of time. I've gotten the advice over the years that a lot of people like to do water changes before they know the weather is going to get really hot. For whatever reason, I guess I don't have a good reason. I thought I did have a good reason, but then, I'm thinking about it. I don't have a good reason. I always end up seemingly doing it after a big heat wave, and I thought I had a good reason for it, but maybe that's just timing. It might just be a timing situation more than anything else. So, going to do a bunch of water changes today. Everything made it through. My big problem was my CO2 ran out, and I'm not sure when that happened. That may or may not have been a couple days ago. I do recall checking it on Thursday and going, it's going to run out fairly soon. But I believe that was like Thursday at like 3 in the morning or something. So it very well could have been, it could have run out on Thursday and then been out Friday, Saturday, Sunday, then Monday. So that's a kind of an idiotic thing. So I definitely spent a good amount of time today kind of cleaning up some algae and going through and doing some trimming and just basic maintenance and stuff like that. Other than anything other than that, I really wasn't going too crazy off the rails just because of some temperature changes. Not a big deal, but we are here in let's check in the chat here. Miradul Singh is saying, how content are you with the aquarium hobby in the United States compared to other countries? Content? I'm not sure. I feel like the United States has a lot of room to grow, especially compared to other countries. It's pretty clear to me, going to conventions in other countries, going to fish rooms in other countries, there's a lot of similarities, but there's also just definitely some different, it's just like a kind of a different quality, I guess, or maybe maybe dedication's not the right word, but just a different level of quality in a lot of places. But I also have not been to Asia to go look at fish tanks and stuff like that, so it'd be hard to really compare that kind of stuff. But I have definitely seen a lot of products from around the world. They definitely vary from location to location. Although most manufacturing is done in a fairly limited in fairly limited localities. There's not even like that much manufacturing in the U.S., but so most of the products are coming from China, Thailand, Singapore, Vietnam, blah 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 blah. List goes on, but most of the stuff is coming from Asia at some point. They are handling most of the manufacturing, so most of that stuff's all kind of about the same. But I would say that I think my realistic impression is that there's just more people that are farther ahead in their functional knowledge and experience, and sort of how much willingness they're able to put into the hobby. But that that may or may not be related in more of a geopolitical situation than anything else. I was looking up a study recently as I was listening to a podcast about the hours worked. Let's see if I can find this real quick. In a year by country. So, let's see. The OCOD, the working time, Wikipedia. Here it is. So, over the years, something that people were often talking about. This is not what I want. I want. This is what I think what it is. They were one of the things that they were talking about. Man, I looked this up just a little while ago, and I feel like I'm going to be off the cuff wrong one way or another. So let's see. There's the chart. Hours worked, total. Let me see if I can't find United States. There we go. Let me close that. And data sets available. Let me see here. Italy. So Japan, there we go. Hungary. Oh, I think I turned off. Oh, whoops, I did this wrong. I turned off the United States. There we go. I have to turn the United States back on. There we go. So I was trying to find a comparison on this really quickly while we were talking. But one of the things that was brought up in that podcast that I was listening to was sort of the economic disparity of just productivity versus hours worked, countries related. And let me see. And one of the things that they were talking about, here it is. So I have Japan here. So Japan is, let me re-highlight Japan. So Japan is on average, so it's like all the workers combined to get a metric average on, basically the entire population, right? So I'm not 100% how this works, but I think it's basically anybody from the ages of 18 to 65 or something like that. Like I would have to look up the specific study of how these forced statistics are made, because it would take me a little bit longer to get the real analysis. But just from this analysis right here was correlating to kind of what sort of the mythology in the United States versus the rest of the world's working knowledge of day-to-day life, yearly life, weekly life, whatever you want to call it for the average person. But so Japan, via this comparable working hours, is 1,644 working hours per year. And then in the United States is 1,779. And so what they were talking about was, in the United States, the myth had been passed around for a very long time that Japan overworked themselves. They worked themselves to death, right? And but the weird thing is that when you go look at the American statistics, Americans work an average of 160 hours more per year than even those Japanese workers that were working themselves to death, right? So it kind of gives you an idea that I just got like 400 notifications from Olivia's. Oh, okay, cool. Everything's fine. Just got like a million notifications and is wondering why my phone was doing that. So if we're talking about just that basic understanding, is that like someone in Japan would essentially have 160 hours a year more to dedicate to something else other than their job, right? Which, if you kind of break that down, 40 hours a week, 160 hours, that's a month, right? So that would be a month worth of working that you could dedicate to something else, like a hobby, for instance, if that was something that you were trying to do. And, the reason I'm combining those things in my head to say whether or not I'm happy about how the hobby is in the United States, it's like there's a whole lot of things contributing to that, because you could have the average American versus the average Japanese person, and if you say just on those averages of how much each of them works in an annual period, that one person would have an advantage of time to dedicate towards something other than work related, so a hobby type thing would really come into, it would all that comes into play. And so it's hard to really make or pass a judgment onto what country is doing this or what country is doing that. I think it's just really, you kind of have to make an assessment based on the individual product or the individual tank or the individual this or that or the other thing. Also, it's really difficult to make an honest assessment at, considering the pandemic that's going on, the coronavirus is going around, there's work shutdowns here, there's countries shut down there, there's exports shut down, there's imports started back up, there's exports started back up. There's a lot going on right now that would make it really difficult to be like, here's what's going on in 2020, because here's what's going on in 2020 is a whole lot of craziness. You know what I'm saying? Janice, longtime supporter, what's up, says flat, eggshell, or glossy, and I have no idea what's that related to. What's the best black paint to use on tanks? I mean, it depends on the tank. It depends on what you're going for. I don't paint them anymore. I just don't. The reason for that is if I want to change it, it becomes impossible. So nowadays I actually use, let me see if I can find the product. This may take a second. So let's see, window film. Let's just see if I can find a basic one that actually works well. Oh, here it is. Here's just like a real basic one. So if you're talking about a glass tank, I've never had a problem with window film at all. It may take you a minute to find whatever color you're looking for, but that's really not, in my opinion, like the concern, because it will take you much less time to search around for like a black or a blue or a green or a yellow or a whatever that you're looking for. But I either go with a black background on the tank, just period, or I am changing a little bit and going with clear backgrounds and just using window film. The main reason for that, it's easy to put on. You don't have to clean up anything after the fact. Like, you don't have to clean off any brushes or, tape things off with tape and have overspray from spray paint and all that kind of stuff. It's easy to clean up, and it's super easy to change because you can just peel it off, clean the surface that it was on with, like, acrylic cleaner or Windex if it's glass, and go from there and replace it with a different color. Like, if you wanted to make a change, you can just change it, and it won't, it might be just something that you did on a Thursday night after work. It was like, oh, I've got a half an hour. Oh, cool, I can change the background of my, I just clicked the wrong button, and I opened my video editing program, so hopefully that doesn't screw with the stream. My bad. But yeah, the window film is much more convenient. It's just all around kind of a better product than I would recommend in the year 2020. Just in a realistic way. Plus, it's going to be the color that you put it on there. Unless you get a ton of sunlight on it, that can be a problem. But, who knows? So, like, looking at Germany's hours worked here. So, the general hours from Germany, hours per worker, is 1,386, and then you go over to Americans. So Americans on average are working over 400 hours more a year than the average German worker, right? So that's just kind of, I still have this chart open, and I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to close it because that's completely distracting me from what we were talking about. Sorry. Daniel Velez says, I also think a megastore hurts the hobby, where in Europe most people like ma and pa stores. These stores are dedicated to your hobby as opposed to going to a store that caters to many pets. I believe megastores can be done well. I don't see them in the United States doing well, but I have seen megastores in Europe that were much better done. So let me see. Germany fish store. What the hell was that place called? I went to a Aquarium Glazer. That place was awesome. I wouldn't even call that was that a store? Let me see. Yeah, Aquarium Glazer's not even a store. This is literally that giant fish warehouse. What was that place called? Amazing German fish store. There's one from Aquarium Co-op, which I think I'm in that video. Maybe yeah, maybe no. Or at least I was there. Let me see. What was that place called? We went to a giant fish store in Germany, and I can't remember the name of it. Cola Zoo, maybe? Maybe that's what it was called? Cola Zoo? Is that right? That might be right. Let me see. Cola Zoo. I don't know. Did I spell it right? Probably not. Yeah, it might be Cola Zoo. Yeah, because it seems like there's a bunch of... Yeah, there's a bunch of videos and posts of the Cola Zoo. Yeah, like Cola Zoo was a giant fish store, or a giant pet store. So it had like cat stuff, dog stuff, reptile stuff, fish tanks, all that kind of stuff. But it literally was just a much higher quality than anything you would see in the States. Not only... Okay, here we go. So here's one of the stores I was at. Oh, crap. I have a messenger open. I have some messenger open. Somebody is messaging me. Oh, it's the fish tank barn is messaging me. Yeah, it says Cola Zoo is the one you went to. Sorry. Sorry, Mike. We'll have to get back to you on stream because I'm closing that messenger. It's still open because it's the only way I can. It's the only way I can have conversations with coworkers for whatever reason. All the coworkers all use Messenger to holla at your boy. Let me get this picture here. So here's one of them that I went to. Crap, that's on Pinterest. I can't use that picture. It's on Pinterest. Whatever. I'm not going to post a picture up then. Fine. Either way, went to Cola Zoo where Oliver Knott has a big giant discus tank. So if you look up Oliver Knott discus tank Cola Zoo, you'll see pictures of it. Fish Tank Barn says Cola Zoo was much better than any mom and pop fish store in the U.S. That would be debatable because I have seen some mom and pop fish stores that may or may not have been backed by big giant corporations in the U.S. I don't know their financial stuff, but they were definitely like individualized stores that I've been to. Like there was one in Lansing, Michigan, that if I recall correctly, Lansing, Michigan fish store. What the hell was that place called? Prius Pets? Is that right? Prius Pets? This might be it. Let me see. Let me look at some pictures. Yeah, Prius Pets has like a giant water display out front. They have a river that like runs through the whole store. They have birds and like, not to speak badly about Prius Pets or anything like that. Yes, Cola Zoo was generally speaking a better quality store than Prius Pets, but I would say that they were definitely on par with each other, that they wouldn't be like that far off if you realistically, like Fish Tank Barn has been to both, and he says, I thought they were about equal. Yeah, so it's like, that's a good example of like Prius Pets in Lansing, Michigan is a good example of like the quality of stores that you would kind of see in Europe versus if you were to go to like a Petco in America here. The Petcos are like a disaster. The Petcos are basically a complete and utter disaster, I think, realistically. Hydronics Aqua wants me to talk about Rotella Sunset. I don't know what you want me to talk about. Rotella Sunset. I would need a slightly more specific question for Rotella Sunset. Let's look it up. Rotella Sunset. I have some of the Florida. I don't have any of the Kramer right now because I'm waiting to buy some from Chance, the guy who identified it. He found it in his backyard. That's the funny thing. I think he planted it back there and it mutated, but the Florida is basically the same. Nothing really all that difficult about it, honestly. It's really like, lower your pH a little bit, get some CO2 in the tank, make sure you have a high enough level of CO2, do your water changes. Basic fertilization is really nothing too crazy. The reality is, like, I learned a lot from basically from the Bar Report. So if you go to the Bar Report, right? There's going to be a lot of forum posts on there where people are getting like crazy specific about how they're running their tanks and whatnot. Now, I got to meet Tom Barr, and I could message him pretty much at any time. He will get back to me, which is great. He will generally get back to people, like if you ask him a question on Facebook or something like that. Like, he's a perfect example. But I will say, one of the things that I learned from all of the weird interactions of trying to get things to part per million and blah, 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 and all that kind of stuff, with dealing with forums and all of that stuff back in the day, where everybody was getting super super in depth with like what's going on with their planted tanks and all that kind of stuff. The reality is, if your CO2 is high enough, if you're putting quality light in there and a general fertilizer, you're going to be fine. That's the reality. Is like, yes, you're going to have to clean and do maintenance and that kind of stuff. But if you have those kinds of things, you're going to be fine. You may have to make some minor adjustments. You might have to do some temperature. Maybe you got to do bigger water changes, smaller water changes, that kind of stuff. But all that stuff is going to be figured out by you, the user, the end user, from just maintaining the system more than anything else. That's going to be the biggest advice I could give to anybody for any planted tank. Just hands down, there you go. If you want to get super specific, so the follow-up question was, how long does it take for newly planted stem plant to develop roots? I don't know off the top of my head what a specific timeline would be, but if I add a plant to a tank, yes, that's correct, right? If I put a plant in an aquarium, I'm expecting it to root within a 2-week period. If it doesn't, I'm going to try something. But if it doesn't root at all within that 2-week period, it's probably not going to be doing very well. Like the Syngonanthus I got a while ago just did not adapt well to my water. So even though I have, 3 different tanks that I put it in that all have pretty different water conditions, the Syngonanthus I got was grown in a hyper-specific water column, and I'm going to have to make some big changes to a tank to grow some of that if I order it in again. Some of it is attempting to adapt and may or may not do well, but the reality is it's like trial and error, man. You got to just keep trying. Sometimes you make some errors, sometimes you don't. Plants aren't offended by your failure, so it sucks and it feels bad, but it's some plants. That's just the reality behind it. It's like, it's some plants. You're just gonna have to try and try again. It's just kind of what it comes down to. And the reality is, like, sometimes things just won't work for some people. So I wouldn't get discouraged by that, but also play to your water source. There's no reason to not do that. Wesley's Fish, it's just a shame we cannot get the U.S. aquariums here in Europe. I love the black trim that you can use to put a lid on. I've never seen anything like that, like the $1 per gallon sale in the U.S. I can see merits to that statement. But I would also say that there's a real big difference between the $1 per gallon tanks and something that you would see on sale in Europe. The silicone is terrible. The black trim is awful. It will drive you nuts after a little bit. it's, I think that that's a human affectation that we all have to deal with, where it's like, oh, I want to do that. Oh, I want to do that. You see somebody who framed up something that looks really good. It creates a lust to purchase and continue to do more and more and more. And I think that's just part of being a human. So I think that's likely what it is that you're feeling, that like, man, I really wish I could do those $1 per gallon sale. And the reality is, like, once you actually experience it, get those tanks, just realize what low quality they are. You would likely change your stance, is what I would say. Darren DeRoos, haha, true, but I love the rimless look. I guess we were spoiled for ugly black rim tanks. That $1 per gallon sale is a great deal, especially when you get a 40-gallon breeder. Yeah, I mean, the 40-gallon breeder is a good deal, and I agree with that in comparison to what it normally costs to buy a 40-gallon breeder. But I also am in the argument of there is a quality level where things start to change, right? It's like if you buy a car, and let's just say we're talking about all the new cars, and you buy I wouldn't even know what brand new Toyota, let's just say a Toyota Camry or whatever, just like that middle of the road, brand new Camry. It'll drive for probably 250,000 miles. It'll be fine. It's great. The parts will hold up and everything. But then you compare that to an off-brand, like maybe a Kia or something. I don't know. An off-brand car of the same sort of make and model-ish type thing, same features or whatever. That car would likely only make it to 100,000 miles, and the door handles will fall off, and the windows will stop rolling up and down, and the AC will give out, and all of those things that I realistically have encountered over the years with the $1 per gallon sale type tanks. Not even one specifically, because most of them are all either made out of the same glass or the same parts. They're just assembled somewhere else. But I will tell you, I have been in meetings with the companies that provide those tanks. I have been privy to those conversations, and the realistic sales pitch of why they do a $1 per gallon sale is that so you buy all of the other stuff. The canister filters, the hang-on back filters, the heaters, the fish food, water treatments. You don't like your plastic fern, you buy a different plastic fern. That's the stuff that they're selling you. So I would take all of that stuff into consideration just as a person who's into the hobby, who enjoys the hobby, is that you go, why are they selling me a tank for $20, right? When that doesn't really happen anywhere else. Well, they're making their money off all of the other stuff that they're selling you. So if you are somebody who really wants to take advantage of the $1 per gallon sale, you make all your own food, you don't buy all that other stuff that goes along with it, then yes, you're probably falling onto a good deal. But I personally am a big fan of acrylic tanks, and the reason for that, one of the big reasons for that, is their durability. They will last an extraordinarily long time. I won't have to buy new tanks. And that is just my personal decision making, right? My personal thing is like, that was a contributing factor for me, was like, well, if I buy $1 per gallon sale tanks, they blow out seals, they crack, the plastic will deteriorate and look weird off black, and then will crack and get gross and stuff like that. Or I could buy a tank that's generally going to last 40 years, generally speaking, and still probably be a fish tank after that fact. And, we all have to be real honest on how long we think we're going to live. And if I bought a tank right now and it lasted for 50 years, likely I'd be dead by then. So that's something I took into consideration. And whether that matters anything to you or not, hey, it's up to you. All right, we got to jump into our commercial for the day. Hey, this show's brought to you by people that like to hit the join button, or hit the subscribe button, or hit the whole other website where the Patreon is, and I got to have the link for the Patreon because it doesn't seem like... Oh, here it is. Copy. This is a good part of the commercial right here where I copy and paste. There we go. So, or the people that go over to the Patreon and become a patronizer. That's what it's all about. Let's update our YouTube members. And I have it open. Uh-oh. What window do I have it open in? I had it open, and then I was answering some comments, and now I had to reopen it. That's my bad. I feel underprepared right now. Our number was up, and then it went down. I guess I pissed off a bunch of people with our book club. People got super mad because I talk about current events and politics and things that are going on in the world. That's part of who I am because I'm a human that lives here on the planet. And I honestly feel offended by people that don't want to talk about current events because they're just able to be like, that won't affect me. That doesn't affect me. That's not a problem. I'm not worried about that. I'm not concerned by that. I don't want to talk about that. I find that offensive. So if those people are offended because I want to talk about things that are current events, we don't want them here anyhow. We're down to 86 YouTube members. We're about to 86 ourselves from the internet because that's just kind of how that goes, right? Demonetized up and down and left and right, and that's just kind of how it goes. The Patreon, let's update the Patreon. It went down, it went up, it went down, it went up. Here we go. We were at 230, and now we are at 228. That's still better than 0. I'm happy with that. If you're all happy with that, we'll move on to our next segment, which would be... Darren DeRue says, what would be the minimum depth you would need aqua soil for good root growth? I would say right around the 2... my alarm's going off. It says go work out. Oof, I will in a minute, you phone. I would say your minimum depth kind of situation is basically boiling in at like 2 inches, you know. But that's really going to be any substrate. You know what I mean? You're gonna want like a two inch. You want to hit that kind of 2 inch mark, and I don't know how many inches is that in centimeters. 2 inch to 2 centimeters, which I think it's like 4.5. Nope, 5. Straight up 5. Oh, 5.08. Let's call it 5 centimeters. For those of you on the American measurement, 2 inches. For those of you in the rest of the world on metric, 5 centimeters is going to be where you want to be at realistically, regardless of what substrate it is. So whether it's aqua soil, whether it's gravel, whether it's EcoComplete, whatever the hell you want to put in there, you are going to need some kind of depth for that root to properly exist, right? Obviously, there are some plants that require bigger depth. One of them that comes to mind would be a sword plant. Sword plants need a lot of substrate. So if you are going to get into the sword plants, just the full-size swords and the smaller-size swords, right? So we definitely take that into consideration, that if you are going to have some plants that require more root space, take that into account. But a 2 inch is going to be fine, just enough space for the roots to root down and exist in the space where they're supposed to be, right? Whoa! Oh my God, we got a new member during the show, you guys. We got a new member during the show. It has been an exceedingly long time since we've gotten a brand new member during the show, and it feels good. Feels good to break the pandemic strikeout. CHB Gator becoming a brand new member. Well, thank you very much. Somebody said don't do so many commercials during the live stream, but it literally is. Someday we'll hit that funding mark where I will never do a commercial ever again. I know that YouTube hammers you guys with commercials. I really have no control over that. The only way I could recommend people to get rid of the commercials off of YouTube is get a premium account, which unfortunately costs money, but I don't really think about the commercials on YouTube because I don't encounter them on a regular day-to-day basis, you know. So, yeah. I'm sorry you guys watch a lot of commercials on YouTube. I don't have anything to do with it. Honestly, if I thought... There was a point in time where I was like, dude, I'm going to turn off the monetization on my channel. And I did that, and I will tell you this much. The videos do not get promoted very well when you just take the commercials off of the channel. I tried it. I tried it for a long time. And it didn't work. As a matter of fact, it just made things worse. But moving on. Jessica Thiergartner has a full-size sword plant and needs a lot. LOL. Yeah. So if you think about like Amazon sword plants in the wild, they once they're like fully full grown, they're quite large. You know, they would not fit in most people's aquariums because they spend about half of the year above water and half of the year below water. Whatever the amount of months is, I don't know. It might be 3 months underwater and 9 months above, or whatever the split is. Don't get mad at me for that. But a full-grown sword plant can utilize up to 3 feet by 3 feet by 3 feet amount of space for its root ball underneath it. So you start to think about, well, that's a huge-ass tank, and that would only be the roots for that plant. It could spell an issue with not having enough substrate in an aquarium. Obviously, I think when you kind of think about it that way, right? John says in the 70s they told us in school we'd be on the metric system by now. I don't know, man. They told me we'd have flying cars, we'd have teleporters, we'd have phasers, we'd have lasers, we'd have robot time machine attacking us with rocket launcher. They told us a lot of stuff, and they were wrong about all of that. Unfortunately, those were all just people saying hypothetically, whereas the science, a lot of it is starting to come true. You know, with like global warming, we're starting to see that. Sea levels are rising, that's for sure. Sea level is higher than it has ever been before, so we're starting to see some of that come true. And I do, you know, I'm old enough to remember when they were just making fun of Al Gore for, you know, supposedly, you know, having invented global warming by being a politician. I don't know. I mean, they were literally just attacking the messenger. Let's see. Yep, same things I heard. Born in 1982. Yeah. I believe the original Mad Max happens in 2021, I think, right? Mad Max in movie year. Let's see. Mad Max in 1973. George Miller. I'm going to tell you guys, I love Mad Max. I love that. I love the cinematography. I love how crazy wild the story is. It's wild to think that like the first one came out in 1979. Like the first one came out before I was born, dude. It's amazing to think that exists, that's just been around. I don't know where to look that up. I kind of looked it up, but let's see. Timeline of events. Oh, here we go. This might be it. Let's see here. Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome, September 10th, 1990. What? Set 15 years after Mad Max 2, which would put it in 2004. Okay, so Mad Max, December 6, 1984, written on the Highway 9 Sector 26 sign. Estimated 1983, seen by MFP plate. Given in the Halls of Justice. So that's After the release of Mad Max, according to the dates provided by production documents and movies themselves, the original 1980s... Hold on, I gotta zoom this out. Ends in 2005. So I don't think the first movie was set some odd 10 years after the 1973 oil crisis without any backstory behind it. Its visible hidden dates in the movie are estimated 1984. Then Mad Max Road Warrior is 3 years after Mad Max, which would put it, let's say 1987, and then the rest is supposed to be 15 years after Mad Max 2, which would put it in like 2004 is what they're saying here. So yeah, I think it was supposed to have already happened by now, by this evidence of the kind of the breakdown here. I think Fury Road is supposed to be like, that's supposed to be 2020 or something like that. Like it's supposed to be 15 years later or whatever. But Fury Road makes no sense at all. And I think I didn't like Fury Road, to be brutally honest with you guys. Like, I like the actors in it. The 3D elements that were thrown into it are the worst ever. Do not have a big cinematic release have 3D elements in it. That is my personal taste. Like things that fly at the camera constantly in the movie so that it will like, whoa, people in the 3D will be like, whoa, is awful. Dude, stop putting that into movies. Just stop. Just stop doing that. Just stop doing that altogether. I didn't like Fury Road. It didn't make a whole lot of sense. Like all of a sudden people are like, all of a sudden people are doing the blood transfusions and like all the bad guys are huffing spray paint. I don't know. Just the whole thing just seemed all sorts of weirdy McWeirdy because like where are they getting spray paint? That's the big question I had, because if this is supposed to be after, right? So you had Road Warrior, right? Then you had Mad Max. Then you had Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome, right? Which, let's say the first one was 1985 even, right? And then 3 years after that was 88. And then the next one after that, let's say just put it at 2005, like I said. I mean, that's 20 years of nobody manufacturing spray paint. And then Fury Road is supposed to be 20 years after that or something, 15 years after that or something. Like, nobody's manufactured spray paint in 35 years. Why are these guys using spray paint, and specifically silver spray paint, if it is spray paint? Because it pretty clearly is supposed to be spray paint, right? Or maybe I'm just, like, dumb and it's supposed to be spray mercury or something? I don't know. Who's manufacturing this? There's no... I don't recall there being any background of, like, what was going on there. I don't understand. I don't understand what was going. It just, I don't know. It just was dumb. Why is there a guitar player on a bungee cord that had these playing a fire-breathing guitar on their machines in the future? They drive around but they're gas-powered. You can't suspend disbelief when things like that are going on. Like in Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome, they explain all of the parts of what was going on. That like they're getting and there's no other way to put it because this is how the movie puts it. They get the pig shit. They're creating methane so they can run the town, right? And then the whole battle is in regards to Mad Max just wants his stuff back so that he can go back to doing whatever the hell he was doing before. But everything's like run down, everything's scavenged. All of the stuff that is going on is just crap that people have collected from going around. There's like no new products. There's not, but like where are these spray paint people getting? I don't know. It's just dumb. I didn't really want to talk necessarily about movies today, but that's where we're at right now. I don't know. John McKenzie says there's spray paint hoarders. That's right. We have to consider the future when when we talk about spray paint hoarders and what it is that they're going to be doing to our future people. What is up with the arm on this chair? It moved forward, but I don't know that it has that feature. It has an up-down feature. It's all super... the arm on this chair is like... It's loose. Oh, that's why. There's a screw on the bottom. Tighten it back up. All right, there we go. So I don't fall down. Let's see. There was a question up here I was going to answer. Speaking of aquariums blowing a seal, I walked down to the basement yesterday to the sound of water spraying everywhere. In a panic, I checked all the tanks. Fortunately, it was just the toilet dying. Oh, that is super funny. I do have to admit, I've had that happen to me before. I thought a tank had blown up, and it turns out just the return line on a toilet was just doing that inside the tank. And it was like, oh, I just got to replace the guts on this toilet, and everything will be fine. No. Wesley with the follow-up says, I've never had a hands on any of those tanks, so I cannot judge their quality. I just don't like to rig my own lid carriers, as that's never going to look all that clean. Understandable, but I guess I would say at this point, if I were you, here's what I would do. I would find somebody who is a huge fan of 3D printing in your area, like somebody who's really into 3D printing, and see what they have, see what they could come up with, because that has been something that's legitimate, I think. Hold on, I have something right here as an example. So, like, you know the plant hangers where you can put... Jason Liu sent these to me a while ago, and I haven't used them yet. But this would be a good example of somebody locally with a 3D printer. They're making all the stuff that you could make. Like, you can basically program it in, and you could make stuff, right? So I think that's what I would do personally, is find somebody who's into 3D printing and enlist them to help you out with making some cool hangers for a lid, and then, you know, get a glass piece and make a lid. I mean, that's basically what it goes to. What brand tanks do you swear by, and what's your smallest tank? There's a lot of good brands out there. I would say the best, like, kind of all-arounder... Honestly, I'd have to think about that. I don't have a good answer. I don't have a good answer who's like a go-to. Landon makes some pretty good rimless tanks these days. I would say Landon's probably a good spot to go. I wish I had their email so I could see if they would sponsor the channel and send me some tanks, but I don't have their email, and I don't know. Maybe they'll someday, I guess, see if I want to be doing something with their tanks. But I do like their tanks. Lifeguard Aquatics makes some pretty affordable kind of like rimless small tanks. The smallest tanks I have are these little like 1 gallon tanks or something like that. I mean, what are they, like 1 1/4? Maybe less than that. Maybe they're 2 gallons, maybe more. I don't know. They're pretty small, though. They're just 8 inches by 8 inches by 8 inches. So whatever the math is on that. Because 12 by 12 by 12 is 7.9 gallons, right? So maybe they're 2 gallons, maybe? 1.5? I don't know. I'd have to do the math. And I'm going to be honest with you, I'm not way into that right now. But they're these ones right here, these boutique beta ones. I've shared this link around a bunch. By the way, I do have an Amazon affiliate link, so if you go through the Amazon affiliate link and you just buy all the stuff that you were going to buy, it gives us credit for advertising to you. FTC regulation says I gotta tell you. There we go. Told you. I am waiting for my tanks of silicone to give out. 29 gallons on water in my redone basement would be no bueno. Yeah, that really sucks. It really sucks when you have a tank blowout. It's just not even. It's not even. There's nothing good about it. It's like 100% just bad times. Vicky's coming down here because she wants to go caw in the background. Caw. Yep, I heard it. Did you hear it? Maybe. This is a good microphone, so you might not have heard it. Where is that tank I was looking for that would be a decent recommendation? It's their 60p, and I'm not seeing it. Landon makes a pretty good tank, as far as I'm concerned, but it's the 60p, and it's not popping up on my Amazon for some reason like it normally does. What's up? What are you doing? Oh, really? Is she old? Oh. All right, Internet. I just got some bad news. One of our pet birds is not doing well. So I'm going to go take care of my spouse. And shout out to CHB Gator for becoming a member today. And hopefully I see you guys on the other